So this video will be on the basics of getting started in Unity, Visual Studio, and some type of version control, whether it's Google Drive or GitHub. So first off, remember I have this link up here. You can click on it now. This is for long-term support. It's that they actually increment it by another version while last time I posted that link. So if you click on it, you go to long-term support. Here is 2019 forward 10F1. So you can download for Windows here. We're going to do the long-term supports. They're more stable. And yes, Unity is into like 2020 now, but the difference between the two versions are so slight. There's not, it's not going to make or break anything. You're learning the basics of Unity. So we can go with the long-term support 2019. So when you download it, usually you'll get the Unity Hub. So there's Unity Hub and then there's Unity Editor. So Unity Hub is just there's so many versions of Unity, and it's like it helps keep track of all the versions of Unity. It helps keep track of all your projects. It's like a central repository location. So you can always create new projects here. This is the one I'm working on for the class here. And here's the name, the location. Here's the Unity version. You can go to installs. If it didn't install at all, you actually can just install Unity Hub. If you go on installs, you see you have two versions of Unity, but you can always add more. In this case, here's the latest official releases, and there's long-term support 2019. You click there and it'll install it. During the install process, whether you do it directly through the Unity website or you do it through Unity Hub, there will be this type of which modules do you wish to add, the optional content. So you do wish to turn on WebGL build support because down the road, or I guess in a few weeks, October 4th, and at the latest, you're going to be building the WebGL for your first prototype. And the documentation will be on by default. And Visual Studio will be on by default, just not showing it in the modules here. If you do miss up WebGL install, you can always go here to add modules and turn on WebGL and it'll install it for you. But anyway, that's the point of Hub. And if you go over to projects, so you go to learn, just be aware that there's tons of tutorials. These are projects, and if you click over here to tutorials, so if you need some help following along and learning Unity on your own, there's tons of tutorials here. Also their website, if you go to learning, if you're ever stuck on a topic, and change how the layout looks so it doesn't look familiar to me. But I'll say Unity Learn, start learning. Yeah, it's great. Tutorials and projects. Oops. All right. So I only want to show you that they have the projects too, but then they have specific areas that you need to learn about. So scripting and editor essentials, but anything you need, let's see, physics, user interfaces, 2D, XR, mobile. Just know that once you learn how to move around this thing, they do have a lot of content. All right, but once you install, you can say project and create new. But actually, before I do that, let's just say you have Unity installed, everything works great, you have the right version, you got Unity Hub, everything's great. All right, so let's talk about how to do version control on your projects. So this is GitHub. Actually, this is my account. These are my repos. And this is this class. I just started it 9 days ago. You see I have 8 commits, or 8 times I updated the code bank. And here they are. And I just started building this prototype 9 days ago. But at any point I can go back if I made a mistake or look at previous code. So version control or some type of storing your code is going to be essential. The excuse of my USB drive broke, or my computer, you know, it was old and I was waiting to get a new one and it broke and I don't have it anymore. I don't have my project, or whatever the excuse is. As an IT student, as a tech student, it doesn't. That's about as you know, as serious, as consistent as you know, my dog ate my homework. It's just not excusable to not back up your code. There's so many options these days. So in the very least, use Google Drive, NJT's Google Drive, create a folder for the class. You could use Google Stream. It's super useful for me. If I bring it over here, I have Google Drive file stream. And this is my NJT account, and it's right on my computer. So you can create a folder called Unity Projects, whatever, within your G drive, which is just mapped sitting on your C drive. But it updates your project as you're working on it. So you're working on your project, creating some new C# scripts, creating new Unity scenes, interfaces, what have you. As long as it's on your G drive, it's actually going to be updated up on the cloud. So if I go to my drive and then Unity projects, you can see that this is all the same as this. This is the local version sitting on my computer, and here's the cloud version. In local version, it gets emptied out and it only pulls down files as needed from the cloud as you open up something. It's just basically a bunch of references. And then you have a little icon down here, which tells you when you're uploading or downloading. So you make sure you don't save all your project and then just turn your computer right off. Oop, my fault. I was sorry about that. I noticed I've got like 3 screens. I have one for screen capture. So anyway, this here is my G drive. Local, it's mapped onto my C, but this is my local version of Google Drive. You could see I'm under my drive Unity projects here. This is a cloud version. This is NJT's Google Drive. Here's my drive. Here's Unity projects. You can see they're the same. So if you go ahead and make your Unity projects here, you get this G drive going. You create your Unity project in here. As you're updating it, it will reflect and update onto the cloud. I was going to try and show you this icon on my tray. But anyway, if you look at your file system tray after you install Google Stream, it'll show you when you're uploading or downloading. Just don't turn off your computer when you're uploading your most recent files. But in this way, it's really easy. You don't even have to think about it. And it's always keeping a latest version up on Google Drive. So that way you'll never lose your project. And you just can't do that in this day. It's just not excusable in the class. So in the very least, it's easy enough to get Google Drive file stream G drive going. It's easy to use the NJT Google Drive. It's unlimited size. And let me snap this back in here. And if you care to, it's going to be really relevant for you to just get used to using GitHub. If you notice on my, let me open up. So if you notice on the website, if you're poking around, actually you would be over here on the C'Spresso stuff. Notice that there's code here. If I open that, I show off all my code. There's an actual working Unity project, and it's up on GitHub. And you can go through the whole history and look at all the updates and how long I've been working on it and what have you. So it's going to be very useful for you to just get used to GitHub. Now, it's a free account. You just create it on github.com, or there's Bitbucket. But just to make you aware, if you use GitHub or GitLab, if you are going to work in our research lab, they're going to require you to learn this anyway, so you might as well just start picking it up. They just use a different system called GitLab. And you need some type of client on your computer to work with it. So usually the GUI is the first step, the graphical interface, and not the command line. So if you want, you can download this. This is free too. It's very easy to set up. In the very least, you do need to go to this website. You just Google Git, and you have to download it. So it's a library. It's currently at 2.28.0. It's like if you're working on Python, first you have to download Python. Or if you're downloading Unity, you first have to download Unity. You need the local Git version. So GitHub is up on servers or the cloud, and it has Git running there in addition to many other things. But you need your own version of Git. Sorry, this Git. And when you download it and install it, if you're going to go this route, you should just download some type of text editor. I like Notepad++, but there's tons of ones, whatever, because when you download and install Git, it's going to ask you kind of what's your default text editor. It's a very simple editor. It's not Visual Studio or a complicated development environment. So just a very basic, Windows come with Notepad, but Notepad's not really a text editor. It's a little too simple. So just like something, if you're hardcore with Linux or Bash, you already kind of have more other tools you wish to use, but I'm just training somebody who's starting up. So get Notepad++ installed, then go through and download Git. And the whole process will install Git, and it'll ask you if you wish to install this command line tool, Git Bash. And just do that. It's a super easy tool. I'm going to use this because when you're working by yourself and you're just working on one branch, which I'll explain a branch in a second, but you don't need to do anything complicated. You're not working with a team. You can most definitely use this, the GitHub desktop. It's very easy to use. There's great tutorials for it, and it's a command line or a GUI-based client. Either way, they do the same thing. They're looking at your local repo, and you can update your remote repo with it. And so this is the remote repo. It always lives off of your computer. You always have a history of all the changes you made. You can always access any version of your Unity project. So once you install all that, and you have a command line like this or the desktop tool, in either case, what you want to do is you want to create a repo remotely. So actually, let me step back 1 second and look at all these commits are by me, by myself, in a series of time, one after the other. The oldest is down here to newest up here. So you can think of it as like one timeline, one linear line of commits, one branch, and they call it a master branch. And actually, it's up here. You can see master. And I don't have any other branches. In most of these projects, I'm working on myself, and there's no need to have a series of branches. But if you are going to build out new features, or if you're working on a team, you don't want people stepping on each other's toes. And if you're making a new feature and you don't know if it's going to work or not or break something, that's when you create other branches. Think of them as like other timelines of your code. You can jump between branches. They'll all have commits. You can like jump to the latest part of a branch and use that Unity project and keep working. And so say if you're off on another branch and you make all these amazing features and they don't break anything and they're awesome and they work, you can merge that branch back onto your master branch. You can make that your main bank of code, and you like it, and that's your new code bank. But in this case, we just have one branch, the master branch, and we have very simple Git commands we're going to do with just one branch. So anyway, we can go back, we can create a new repo. So this is my username. You'll have username. You call it whatever. You can call it IT380. I'll just call it IT380, really simple, because I'm going to delete it. You can give a description. It's a prototype for the ed tech class or whatever. It will be public. Just get used to it. Again, you just get comfortable with people reviewing your designs, looking at your code. I've never had anyone troll me or make fun of me for my stuff, so just feel comfortable putting your stuff out there. And for this class, it's going to be very useful and helpful for me. Instead of, if you do choose to use Google Drive, that's fine. I'm going to have to ask you to do a few more steps when you kind of send your code to me at the end of the class. So you should just use GitHub now and just learn it and come to lab time if you need to. But at least if this is too much for you right now, at least you have the Google Drive workflow that you can do. But in either case, just make it public. Add a Readme. It's basically that Readme file at the top that gives any basic info on what's going on, how to navigate through this code bank, what is the point of this thing, and what have you. So add a git ignore. This is going to be essential. This is kind of optional. This is essential. And so git ignore, and we're going to filter on Unity. So you saw that there's all these different projects. And basically it says you're going to have this location, this folder that has your project in it, and this git ignore sits at the top, and it tells Git what files to ignore. It's not going to want to track everything. So for Unity, there's a whole lot of other stuff that comes along. So if I just go into one of these projects, let me actually go to I'm actually working on Git projects, educational software design. So git ignore is actually ignoring all these. If I open it, sure. So if I open it, it's saying it's going to ignore the library, the temp folder. If you look over here, any OBJ, which is for 3D files, builds, logs, memory captures. And there's certain files it's going to ignore too. So this means your project, when it's in a Git repo, there's certain folders and certain files that it'll track to know if you've done changes to, and certain stuff it'll just ignore because it just doesn't need to track that for version control. So usually I'll choose a license and I'll just go with MIT. It's kind of like a generic, if I remember correctly, you can use it for like non-commercial purposes, but you kind of have to contact for commercial purposes. So it's just a basic license on your code. Not like it's, really going to matter, but at least you're just going kosher with everything. You have a nice license. So here's my README. You can click edit here. You can make this much larger if you care to, but notice that we have one commit, an initial commit. We have our git ignore, the license file, and the README. So we actually have our remote repo set up. And now since we have our remote repo set up, we can actually clone it. So you see here, you can open it with GitHub Desktop, or you could just clone it. You can copy this link, right? And you can open up your Git bash. And then I'm going to navigate to the D drive, CD to navigate to a different folder. So if you notice here, tilde is wherever the home location was. It's under C users somewhere. But I'm going to go to the D drive. That says we're currently at the D drive. And this is where I kind of keep my Git projects. It's up to you, but I'm at D Git projects. So you could type ls or like list, and it'll show you I'm at the D drive, and this shows you the folders and the files that you have here. And I'm going to want to go CD. I'm going to want to move to the Git projects folder. We can list in there. And if I jump into Git, you can see that it's the same location. And this is the root. I want to place this repo here. This repo is going to be called the IT380. So I want IT380 to be this project to be here under Git projects. So I'm currently sitting under the where I want to place the Git projects. And if I just say git clone, and that was control, you used to control V to paste, but in Git bash you have to hold the shift as well. It's coming from the Linux world, whatever. So that was control shift V. And then notice here, this is the link to my repo, my username, the repo. And I press the enter key and we were successful. And notice here's IT380 got added. And if I do a list, there's IT380. I can go into IT380. And we just have that license and that Readme that we have here. Notice that the .gitignore is not showing. It's actually a hidden file. Anything with a dot in front of it, there's going to be a whole bunch of Git stuff, Git folders, and Git files that you don't have to worry about what's going on there, and just be ignored. It's hidden from you. But what's important is that we have the repo sitting. So let me go over to Unity Hub. I'm going to create a new project. And I'm going to see if I can just place it right in here. I think I'm going to have, let's see. I don't want the IT380 because I think if I write it here, the path already exists. I haven't done it this way before. Usually I create the project in another folder and I just copy it over. But since I'm getting a path already exists, then I'm just going to do what I normally do is copy it over. So let me just say Git 380 like initial Unity start, and then I'm just gonna copy it over from here. So I'm gonna let Unity create a new project. It's actually over on my other monitor, so just wait a second. And there's other ways. I'm just showing you one way. I thought it'd be a little slick and see if I can create the Unity project right in a Git repo folder. But Unity doesn't like that. So right now it's building the project. Sorry, the screen capture software I have doesn't have a pause. You only start and stop, so it's not worth creating a new video. So if you just hold on, here we go, we're done. All right, so Unity created a new project. It looks like this. I'm going to get into Unity in a different video, but just know that this is what a blank Unity project looks like. That's great. I'm going to close it out because all I wanted were the files. So I'm going to go over here. Let's see, actually, D drive, D, Git projects. So remember this initial Unity install. I'm going to go into 380 on this one. So here's our Git local repo. This is the Unity project. I'm just going to copy it over. Notice we're on the same drive, so this is empty now. Move everything over. I'm just going to delete that. And now we have a Unity project in our Git repo. It's an empty Unity project. So one thing to note is, let me open up Unity Hub and just note that where it's pointing to, because it remembers when you create projects, but this location I deleted. So I can remove it from the list because it's not real anymore, but I can add and go to IT380, select folder, and there it is. So a few extra steps, but this would be your project. You could click it to open it in Unity, but you just saw I opened it. I don't want to do that right now. What I do now is I have a bunch of whole new stuff, files and folders in my Git project. So you can say Git Status. So git is the command, and then there's many subcommands. In this case, the status. It says, oh, you have a bunch of your branch is up to date with origin. Origin's the remote, is GitHub off on the servers / master branch, and we have a bunch of untracked files, and it shows the folders that are new. Notice that there's other ones here that aren't listed because git ignore ignores these. So the only ones that were not ignored, we have assets, packages, and project settings. So this is great. So the next step is we have, you can think of this as the way Git works on the local side is there's like a sandbox area where you can just make a complete mess. Then there's the local repo, and then there's the remote repo out on GitHub, the final storage spot where no matter what happens to you locally, you always have your version stored remotely. So I think the sandbox is called your workspace or something like this, but you could call it sandbox, workspace. You can make a complete mess. You can destroy stuff, delete stuff, make errors, and then be like, wow, you can reset it, you can clean it out and pull from your local repo the commit, the version that you were just at, basically wipe out the whole thing back to a stable version, your last version, and just start again. But in this case, I like what I did. Everything's great. It's just all new files, haven't been tracked. So the first step is say git add dot. So this basically says add everything. So let's track everything. Let's add everything. Let's put it into our local repo. So in our workspace, all these new files that were added in our messy, sandbox area, we said, no, this is great stuff. Let's add it. Let's add it to our local repo. It's still on our local side, but it's now tracked. It's now, our local repo has been updated. There's new changes. We've added these files. Just know that, so the file will have an original line endings in your working directory. So you'll get used to these line endings things. Unix and Mac and Linux have one way to designate a line ending or a new line character, and Windows has another. So you kind of have to set them, and that's based on where you're working. They'll give you the guidelines for doing that. If you work in our lab, they'll tell you how to deal with that. But I just kick off all these warnings, whatever. I don't set it. It's fine because it gets, once you pull it down, you use it, the line endings get updated. So let me open this up a little bit. This is what we did. Git add dot added everything. We got a bunch of warnings about line endings. We can ignore it. So we, in our messy workspace area, we all these new files, we liked them. We wanted to add them to our local repo. And now the last step is we wish to push them up to the remote repo. So let me open up the remote repo. Here we are. There's just one commit. These are initial commits. We did this 10 minutes ago. Now we have all these new fun, new project that's local that we like all these updates we did now, and we add it to our local repo. And our next step is git commit -m. Oh, I'm sorry. It's commit then push. So we added these files. We're actually tracking them. There's actually a step I forgot about. So you do a bunch of stuff. You add, modify, remove in your working area in it, and you'll see that there's untracked changes that you have to commit. Now we added them. They're being tracked, but now they need to be committed to our local repo. So git commit, and -m means you wish to add a message. So always do this, and in quotes, you need to add the message. So whatever we did, in this case, we added an initial Unity project and its files. So this is the step we took. We didn't create new files. We didn't create new objects or scenes. We just added that initial Unity project. And so this was all successful. We committed everything to our local. And as you can see here, this this is the little hash name, tag for the commit. And if I move stuff aside, yeah, this is the current commit that we're on. And this is the local one I just made. And the last stage is you've committed it into your local repo and you're really happy. The last thing is git push origin. You're going to push your local repo up to the remote repo. So the local repo is on that master branch. We don't have any other branches. The remote repo is up on the master branch, no other. And we're pushing this new commit, all this update. So if I come up here and if I reset, we now have 2 commits, and this number should look familiar. This is what we just created on our remote. And some of this stuff was 1 minute ago and some was 13 minutes ago with a different message. So this stuff we didn't touch. We didn't change it. We didn't add it. It's still from the last commit. All this stuff is new from the new commit, and so as a new message, that's the message I added to it, and it was done 1 minute ago, and I click here. We have an initial commit, and this added initial Unity files. So we have 2 commits. And I click on one. This just shows the files. Green means it was added. And I can click on the other commit. It's going to be much larger. We have 23 files with 2,252 lines of code that were added. So this is everything from the Unity project. All right. So now I'm starting to build up a track record, right? And I can always jump back when needed. So there's no excuse. Whether you use Google Drive or GitHub, there's always a way for you to get your files. And I just walked you through using the command line. And this is the same process. Git status, see if there's changes. Git add dot to add everything new. Git commit -m. Actually, you can do this up and down. So git status, git add dot, git commit -m, and then whatever the message is. I created a new script that adds a user interface feature. I built the user interface. I built a new scene that is the intro. I built a scene manager script. These are the type of messages you'll see. I refactored the code because it was a mess. Git push origin. So after the commit to our local repo, we push our new commit to the origin. We say this is correct. I want to update the remote with the latest code. And this is basically how you're going to work. There is the only other command is like if you're working with somebody and or say you updated your remote, right? And say you went to another computer or your computer broke, you had to get another one. You could do the git clone to get the whole repo down again. But say you have a local repo that's like say you're working off 2 computers and you move to the other one and one's behind. Git pull origin. If the remote is ahead of your local, there's new changes on remote that you don't have locally, git pull origin is the only other command you're really going to need for this class. So is git status, git add, git commit, git push, and then you might as well know about git pull. And there's a ton more, and you'll learn them if later on in your careers.